Today in Crazed Performance Repair, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about tensioners, how they wear out, and I'm going to try to fix a tensioner, which normally isn't something you would do. Normally you would just replace the tensioner, but this is a 87 Corvette. I can't get one locally. The parts stores just don't seem to have it available. So I'm actually going to attempt to fix this thing. I'm going to try and take it apart and see what I have. Now it is pressed together, and we'll go ahead and get into why I'm going to go ahead and do that. So you can see I have the tensioner mounted in the vise. Now normally the bolt bolts against there, and then of course it mounts against the flange right there, right? And then of course the belt is making the tensioner do this number, and the tensioner is holding against the belt. So why am I going to bother with repairing this one? Not only is it not available unless I order online, but I want it fixed today. So I'm going to try and do it myself, just pure curiosity before I order one. If I have to order one, so be it. But I'm going to try and fix it, and I'm going to show you why here. So if you look at this tensioner, as I tweak this thing like this, see how it's doing that? So it's sitting crooked because there's always stress against it. There's a spring in here, and it's a spiral wound spring in these tensioners. And that spring is given a twisting motion as this thing is doing this on the vehicle. In fact, you can see how it moves like it does when I just go a little bit. It kind of pushes out and tweaks a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and try and fix that. Now, what happens is this bushing in here, there's actually like a nylon material in here that it wears out over time, because this tensioner is sitting here like this, right? And then as the vehicle's running, it's constantly doing a little bit of bouncing around and whatnot, because the pulleys aren't totally perfect. Balancers aren't perfect. They have a rubber bushing in them. And so this thing's constantly being worked like this, and it wears out a spot on that bushing. So if I can take this thing apart and somehow rotate the bushing, because right now it always follows this guy. So if I can somehow rotate the bushing so it's following it in a different direction, I think I can buy this tensioner a little more time. So I'm going to try and take this thing apart. In order to take that thing apart, though, we have to press it apart. It actually has a steel collar with some kind of spline that's pressed into this housing. So what I need to do is press that out of there. You see there's some oil oozing out of this thing. This thing was also soaked in oil, and it's squeaking is the reason I'm actually addressing this one, is because it's squawking as it's being moved back and forth when it's cold. So I'm trying to eliminate that squawk. It was originally thought that it was a belt squawk, but obviously it's just this thing that's squawking. I pulled the belt off, and as soon as I released tension on the tensioner, or moved the tensioner, I could hear it squeak. And so I thought, okay, that's weird. So then I pulled the belt out of the way and worked it back and forth, and it was squeaking. Now, it's not doing it up here. I don't know if it's because I'm clamping it different, or maybe because I cleaned off all the oil that was on it, but it's not squeaking now, but it still obviously has slop, so I need to address that. Let's go ahead and try and press this guy out of this housing here, but before I do, I need to mark where everything lines up so I can make sure I can put it together the same way, if I can even put it together. I guess we'll find out together. I was going to bring it over to the hydraulic press and try and find a way to do this, but I didn't really see a practical way, because this steel insert stays with this, I believe, and in fact, this aluminum is pressed into either this or the steel insert, or around it, I mean, because you guys can't see it on camera, but there's something going on between this steel collar and this part here. So you can see I have right now a couple of chisels wedged in here. I'm going to go ahead and try and do a wedge and pop this thing apart. Now, I did find that this part lines up with this piece here, and that's the part that's really important, is where this and this line up. This piece should automatically take care of itself as long as you put the spring in its slots. So, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and try and pop this apart. I better get some safety glasses on, though, because I might have something go flying. Who knows? Okay, flew apart. Now, I gotta figure out what's actually going on. Interesting. So here it is. We got this collar here. So it's kind of like a Almost looks like a dual press, but I think it's just the steel part going inside of this piece here. Little different way of doing what I would have thought, but it's definitely got some spline lockup going on. Here is the bushing itself. You have the spring, throw it over on this side. And then I gotta look at this guy here and see if that's worn out in any way, shape, or form. Oh, we have that too. Okay, so that bushing might not even be that critical. It might actually be the bushing inside here. So we go like that, and we also have this guy, and the bushing or washer type thing going on here. Interesting. So there's all kinds of things going on. So this guy is a tapered fit. That's different. Oh yeah, it's a tapered bushing too. Very interesting. I was not anticipating that. So maybe, just maybe, I can press this thing together a little bit tighter than it was before, and it'll be good to go. Because right now, it is not very tight in there. That is definitely loose. I wonder if maybe I could grease it too to give it a little more gap absorption, if you will. Definitely can't just replace this though, because it's not something that I could easily find anywhere. I was thinking I could find the part on a website that I know, but I highly doubt I could find a tapered bushing, especially of that size. There's just no way. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I find out here, play around with it, and then I will let you know as soon as I figure it out. Okay, I think I have a solution figured out for this interesting scenario. You see, I just have it all in there. That's just because I was cleaning it here, and this kind of works better for showing you anyway. It's kind of like a table, I guess. All right, so my first attempts at trying to get this thing to not be so damn loose were not very, very good of accomplishing a whole lot of anything, right? So I found out that there's this tapered section here, and this guy with the taper sits in here, and you can see how much further it goes past this. That's because there's that much slop there. So if I push it in to the B flat, there's actually a considerable amount of slop inside there. So there's not much I can do about that. Now I did notice that this nylon material is sticking past the flat surface here and past the flat surface here a little bit. And I took and I just trimmed it out a little bit on the edge because it had a sharp edge on it. Now it's got a little bit of a flat edge. Didn't really change anything. I didn't think it would. It just goes in so far. But you can look at this nylon deal and see that the inside was not really doing much for rubbing against anything, right? And then the outside obviously was the part that was actually physically, was physically turning like this, right, as it's moving. So the outside part is the part that seems to be moving more. So I thought maybe I could take this guy, grind this down to make it so it sits in further, and then I ground this washer down to make it sit in further, and I still have to address how this guy presses into here because I believe it's going to bottom out most likely, and I won't be able to get it in all the way. I'll have to do some measuring there. But I thought maybe if I bring this in further, because it's a taper, it'll spread out and come into contact with this guy better, and then it'll be a tighter fit. Now, you do want it somewhat loose, obviously, because it has to be able to move. So I think I have it where I'm comfortable now, but in order to get there, doing all that machining and putzing around to bring it so it sits further in, I even had to trim this down a little bit. In order to get that, to do that, and sit further in, instead of sitting out here like this, it sits further in. All that work, and it really didn't change much. It changed maybe a little bit, but not enough to make me go, all right, that'll take care of it. So I thought, well, it's not spinning in here. It's only spinning, it's only spinning on the outside of this, right? So what I'm going to do is I put aluminum foil tape as a shim, so the ducting tape, I guess. I taped it to this. Now I have 2 layers, and that made it so that when this thing goes on here, it actually stops before it bottoms out. And if I push on it, it's expanding this just a little bit, right? So it's tight against this guy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this to this and rely on it specifically gliding on this part. And then, to take up the extra space that is in here right now, you see that it's still got plenty of slop in there, so there's plenty of room for it to move and do its thing that it's supposed to do. To take up the rest of that slop, all I'm going to do is grease this part here. And then, of course, I'll grease these lightly with a real light amount of grease. But I'm going to use like thicker, more wheel bearing grease on the inside of this guy, so that when this is in there, wrong way again, it's going to take up the space and it won't have that slop anymore. So that'll make a huge difference there. And then this guy that sits inside here, it's I'm not quite sure what the deal is with it. It doesn't look like it's really wearing out much. It has a little wear on the opposite sides, but same depth, so it's kind of a, I don't think it's really doing much in regards to being against anything. All it is a spot for the spring to sit against. So this thing really has nothing to do with how it's wearing out. So I'm not worried about this piece. That's just where the spring rests, and that's all that is, nothing more. So this is the primary source for any of the slop that it was having. So I'm going to go ahead, throw a little bit of grease on this guy after I glue this up, and I'll get it all assembled. And then right when I go to line up the springs, I'll bring you guys right back, because it might be interesting trying to get it to line up. It might be easy, I'm not sure. But either way, I want you guys to see it so you know what to expect if you have to try and do this yourself. Okay, so I'm to the point where I think I'm ready to assemble. I have everything put in here. I have this guy glued to the plastic, and then the plastic greased to this outside shell of it. And it's still got a little bit of movement without pushing against that. I think when I push against it, it will be a lot better. As of right now, it's got just a little bit of movement, but it is a lot better. So hopefully I'm good. I think I'm ready. I'm going to go ahead and start the process of putting everything together in front of the camera, of course. And so all you got to do is tilt it in here, and the spring will fall into this little slot here. As far as actually getting this thing on there, I'm not totally sure. I think my best thing would be to put this in there first. And I'll go ahead and line this guy up. And then before I squeeze it together, I'm going to go ahead and try and line up the spring with my little mark. It did twang quite a bit. Oh boy, yeah, you can see it's way off. Here's the line, and I need to get that guy lined way up over here. So I got to twist this. Oh, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. That thing's got a lot of tension on it. Yeah, and that's got to be... Oh, wow. Okay. This might take a little bit. Well, after all that, I'd like to say I think I got it, but I don't think I do, because I see too much gap in between here. So I think I need to trim this guy down. It's not going on here far enough. At least that's my belief at this point. So I'm going to have to pull it back apart, but you saw how I got it together. I'm going to have to do the same exact thing to get it together. Boy, what a son of a gun to get that thing together. I'm going to go ahead and try it in the car for schnitz and giggles and see what happens. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure it's going to be good now once I trim down the end of it so it can go in further. You know, I had really wished I gave you guys what it looked like before I did any of that stuff, because I put it on without even messing around with that bushing yet. And honestly, this thing is a million times better. I mean, it does not... Before, when I did this, it would flex a lot, but it is just so much better. So, I have not tried to start it yet to see what it does, but it feels a lot better than it did before. But previous to me messing with that thing, when I started this up, it definitely had a constant and annoying squeak coming from belt / tensioner, and you could tell it was a flutter. It was a bunch of squeaks, you know. And so I believe it was a tensioner. Let's go ahead, fire it up, see if it's gone. I have not changed the belt. I didn't change the tensioner. I, rebuilt it. Let's see if it helps. I don't know. Just give it a shot. Okay, so it's still squawking. I did not check this. Normally I do beforehand to see if that's what the squeak was. I assumed it was a bad belt originally, and then I found the tensioner having an issue and squeaking when I was pulling it off. So it looks like the belt is actually squeaking, and maybe the tensioner was only the squeak that I heard when I gave it a little throttle when I was trying to, like take off or something. I hear a squeak, squeak, squeak every time I hit the throttle. So maybe there's two squeaks going on, and the main one is actually the belt. I'm going to put a little bit of lube. I tried putting lube on this side of the belt, and it did not change anything. So it's got to be on the other side of the belt most likely. So I have to shut the car off for that though. So I'm putting a little lube on that side of the belt, the opposite side here. I'm going to fire it up, and if the squeaking is gone, then I'm going to go ahead and replace the belt. All right, let's fire it up and see if the squeak disappears. All right, much better. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a belt on here, and that will take care of the rest of the squeak. The tensioner, I decided to watch it when I did the throttle because I know before it was a little bit jumpy. It's so smooth now. So doing that tensioner thing did make a huge difference. Hindsight though, next time I won't be trimming down that bushing, that little washer bushing. I'll only do the taking up some space and gluing it in the center. We'll see how long this lasts. I'm going to have to let the customer know, hey, this is what I did. We're going to try it because, we can't get a tensioner right away. Maybe I'll have him even order a tensioner, or I'll order one, but we have to have it shipped, and I wanted it done today.
If you guys felt this video was worth your time and energy listening to, and you feel it saved you enough money, or any other video that I have perhaps, be sure to check out my website. If you have no other reason but to support me, you can go ahead and pick up a shirt just like this one here. And the only difference is you won't say owner on it, right by the boob there. But otherwise, pick up a shirt. It helps support me. It keeps me rolling, keeps me moving, keeps me putting these videos forward. And with that, like, share, subscribe. And as always, I hope to see you on another video. Thanks for watching.